Okay. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, we're live. So again, we're broadcasting this on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you are watching on one, I don't think the quality is as good on YouTube. We need to upgrade the camera on that one. So maybe if you're watching on YouTube, jump over to Facebook and check it out there if you want a more clear picture quality. Okay, so before we get started, let's just do that. Yeah, how's that there? Make a few adjustments in the run here. Okay. So today's podcast, we're running on the back of yesterday's podcast where we were talking about Google AdWords. As we said yesterday, I really do believe that Google AdWords should be a part of everybody's marketing campaign. I really can't think of a reason why they wouldn't be. On some level, I know they're expensive. I know they're only getting more expensive and more and more competitive, but it's just such high quality traffic that if you aren't at least putting some of your budget towards Google AdWords, then I really think you're missing a trick, especially when it comes to digital marketing, because even though you're paying for it, it's so easy to spend a lot of money chasing after shit traffic and the wrong people in this digital space, because unfortunately there are all these different options, but they're not all right, and your customers aren't hanging out there. So let's jump in. I've got my trusty rundown sheet here, so hopefully it's not going to flap in the wind and make too much noise, but let's jump in and talk about what is quality score. So quality score is, and I'm just sip my coffee, it's really simple. Basically, quality score is what Google rates or uses to rank your ad campaigns. So I touched on this yesterday. The three things that they look at are click-through rate, ad relevance, and landing page experience. So effectively, they're ranking every one of your campaigns out of 10. And the higher your quality score, the lower you'll show, the lower your cost per click will be, the more you'll show, and the more you'll rank in the top of the search results as well. So it's Google's algorithm basically to determine, as it suggests, the quality of your campaign, because Google really, even though you're paying them to show ads, they still don't want to show shit ads. They still don't want the user experience to be diminished because you're paying for their ads. So this is what they use to basically sort of separate the good marketers from the rubbish. And as I said yesterday, there's a lot of rubbish out there today, which means there's a lot of competition, a lot of people throwing shit money at Google AdWords, just driving the costs up. But by focusing on quality score and running quality campaigns, this is how you can actually get, above that and start getting positive ROI results in the front end, because it is getting harder and harder to do that. So a few things here. Let's start with where do you find your quality score? Now, this is one thing where Google don't make it really obvious, in the sense that there's no big sort of button that just goes, quality score. It's in your ad set in your keyword level, at your keyword level. So basically, when you click on keywords, you hover over to the right, and there's a little column where it's got the status. So it's eligible, active, I think it is, or not showing. And so you hover over that little word there, and a pop-up will show with your quality score, and it'll show you your quality score, so your overall score out of 10. Plus, it'll give you sort of an average, above average, or below average sort of rating for your click-through rate or expected click-through rate, ad relevance, and landing page experience. So it does give you indicators there to show you sort of what's working. And so you can look at your quality score and make adjustments on the back of that. Now, when it comes to quality score and making adjustments, typically, if the quality score is sort of 7, 8, 9, 10, you want to be careful about making adjustments, because you're pretty happy with those numbers, and you only want to make adjustments where you're pretty sure you'll get a positive result, because anytime you make a change, you kind of reset the algorithm and you have a chance to sort of wipe everything and to potentially go backwards. Anything below sort of a 6, a 5 or 6, you might play around with, you might make adjustments. Typically, we just get rid of them and start again. If we find that we set up a campaign following all the rules I'm going to show you today, and we hit a 5 or 6, then it shows us that the whole campaign is probably a bit cooked. So we need to start again and just build it from scratch, because playing around with certain things doesn't seem to move the needle as fast as just building a new campaign, getting a new score thrown up there. So where do you start with understanding quality score? First thing is to understand that internet marketing, it's all a competition. You're always just trying to beat somebody else. And so there's always clues in what's out there in the marketplace. So the first place you start is with competitor research. The first thing we will do is sit down and start just Googling the words that you want to rank for, not rank for, you want to show for, and have a look at the ads that are showing for that keyword. Now, if you do this each day for a few days, you'll start to see that there's a sort of consistent basis because, again, Google is showing the best ads with the best click-through rate and the best quality score more than they're showing the rubbish ones. So if you see certain ads that are showing over and over again, then it gives you a bit of an indication that these ads are performing quite well. Now, you don't want to go and just copy that ad completely, but you do want to take the structure from there and then try and improve on it and try and make your ad follow a similar format, but then better that one. Another clue is to look at the organic rankings, so the organic listings, number 1, 2, and 3, and just look at their meta description and their meta titles. And there could be some nice clues in there as to what people are resonating with, because again, just like in SEO or just like in AdWords, SEO is the same with click-through rate is one of the ranking factors that Google looks at. So, and I'll get into click-through rate later on in the podcast as to why that's really relevant. So the next one is, okay, so let's jump into a bit of the site structure. And so how do we start the process of getting a high quality score? Because you shouldn't really have any issue with getting a 10 out of 10, depending on, I guess, the industry. But more often than not, we can get most clients running at an 8, 9, or a 10. And obviously 10 is the goal here. So the first thing we look at is the targeting that we're using with our keyword. So you should only ever be using exact match, or if you need to sort of increase the search volume, phrase match. So exact match is the one where it's the square brackets. Phrase match is where it's got kind of the air quotes either side. So exact match is exactly how it sounds. Your ads will only show for that exact keyword. Now, exact match makes it really easy to get the ad relevance and landing page relevance because we know exactly what we're going to show for. Phrase match does allow Google to show you that keyword with words either side of that keyword. So whilst it still will be relevant, just monitor whether or not it affects your quality score, but it shouldn't affect your quality score dramatically if it does. So, but at the end of the day, Google Ads is about getting the results. So it's not just about getting a 10 out of 10 quality score, but your ad's not showing to anybody. So it's really important that you're still getting, obviously, that momentum and flow through your campaign. The other way is to use negative campaigns. Sorry, not negative campaigns, negative keywords. Something that most people miss. So Google tells you every keyword that your ad has shown for. Now, obviously, if you're using exact match, it's not as important, but Google will still stray, I've noticed, from exact match, just with slight variations. So Google will show you in the campaigns all your searches over the last week, month, whatever it is. So if you are running phrase match, it's important to jump in there and just look at the keywords that you've been showing for. And if there's keywords that just aren't relevant, then make sure you go and put those into a negative keyword list in that campaign so that you won't show for them again, because Google with their AI is really clever, but it also likes to push the boundaries because it does think that it knows better than we do. So it'll start pushing your sort of campaigns out there. So it's important just to keep bringing them back in check, and negative keywords are the best way to do that. So let's talk about, actually, I'll have a sip of coffee. Let's talk about how we get our campaign structured. So the first thing I want to talk about is the landing page, because I think the landing page is one of the biggest issues with getting a quality score, a good quality score. And I mentioned yesterday that you effectively just need to set your landing page up as you would for SEO. Now, of course, sometimes with SEO, you're not always targeting conversions as heavily as you are on AdWords. So it's important that if you are structuring a landing page, that even though you will set it up so that it's optimized kind of for SEO, make sure that it's a conversion-based website, that it's not just a complete sort of, like it's not a blog, for instance. You want to make sure that you've got your strong call to actions, a lot of white spaces, it's got a clear and clean flow to the website as well. So a couple of things you want to look at, and I do suggest that use the Yoast SEO plugin. For those of you who don't know, Yoast is an SEO plugin that gives you really clear prompts as to how to structure your on-page SEO. So it'll let you know whether or not you've got different features in there. But the main ones to take care of are obviously the keyword in the title tag, the keyword in the URL, putting the keyword in the image alt tag as well, and then just making sure, obviously, that the keyword is actually in the text on the copy as well. And if you can put the keyword at the top of the page and towards the front of the text, that'll be it'll show Google that it's even more relevant, as opposed to sort of burying it at the bottom of the page, because it does put emphasis on keywords that are at the top of the page. Other factors that you need to consider are to have a phone number. Phone number, and I'd also suggest an address or a full NAPS, a name, address, and phone number, because Google wants to know that you're a real business. I mean, Google obviously, and people using Google want to know that you're a real business. And so anything that you can do to show Google that you're a real business and you're not just sort of out there scamming their users and providing a shit customer experience is important. So phone number, contact us page is another one. Have a contact us page on there, because again, it shows Google that you actually are a serious business. Now, I know with landing pages, sometimes we don't want to put that up in the top navigation because we don't want to leak our our traffic. But if you don't have it in the top navigation, certainly you can put the phone number up there because that's still a lead. But if you want to put sort of contact page and other links in the footer, at least have them on the page there. And that goes to my next one, which is having a privacy policy and a terms of conditions. So this is something that's really important. Again, it just shows Google that you're serious, that you're taking, I guess the guidelines and the rules serious when it comes to your website, your business, and obviously the Google AdWords. Okay, so the next one is, this is a big one, because this one is, WordPress is amazing. It's this dynamic platform that enables us to build websites and be really dynamic what we're doing. But because it is run off a database, and effectively it's sort of unlike the old static HTML websites, which were just there on the website, these have to build themselves from scratch each time that somebody clicks on the website, effectively using sort of PHP and sort of CSS. And so making sure that your website is optimized for page speed. So you can go to platforms like or sites like GTmetrix or Pingdom.com, and they've got these tools where you put your URL in there. Google's got their own speed website speed test as well. Put your website in there, and it'll tell you sort of not only how long it's taking for your website to load, but it'll give you sort of tips on how to improve that as well. One of the biggest issues is generally image size, so make sure your images are actually scaled down. You're not putting massive files on your website. But yeah, have a look at page load speed, and I'll do a podcast on that at some point in the future as well, because it's really important, not only for SEO and Google AdWords, but just for the user experience. Nobody wants to have a slow loading website, and the statistics, around sort of every second that it takes longer for your website to load are pretty damning. So, all right, so let's go to the next thing, which is setting up your ad structure or your campaign structure. So I've mentioned in the previous video as well that it's all about relevance. And so making sure that you're targeting a really sort of a unique keyword with and having that keyword in your ad copy. And then obviously, as I said, having that on the landing page is how you create that sort of relevancy flow. Now, a lot of people there's a lot of debate about this at the moment, but I think the evidence is pretty much in that because of Google's AI, which is their artificial intelligence and machine learning, as I mentioned yesterday, look, Google really is pushing towards a full automated world. So I don't know whether that'll make marketers redundant at some point in the future, but for now we're still very much relevant. But certainly Google's trying to take over more and more control of these campaigns with their automation. And so, which is good because it can help us, but it also does mean that it can hurt us as well, because ultimately, even though Google is telling us that they're doing all these things to help us and to improve our campaigns and all the like, the fact is, you don't become a $200 billion company by making everybody else money. The fact is they're there to sort of take money from us. And even when they're optimizing the campaigns, like, they're giving you little wins, but they're actually taking a lot more for themselves. So I don't think that the AI will ever be an effective way of completely managing your campaigns, but certainly understanding it can help you to sort of get wins and beat your competition, especially at the moment, because we're kind of in that window where we're they've got great capacity from the AI side of things, but they're not there as far as being fully automated. So there's still scope where you can leverage what's coming on the way up, but use your own sort of skill and intuition to sort of outwit your competitors still. So the old way of thinking was a single keyword ad group, which effectively means you have one keyword per ad group, which takes a bit of setting up, a bit of work. And so you'd have one target keyword, you'd make sure that keyword's in the ad, and you would make 5, 6, up to 10 sort of ads, depending on the volume of that keyword, with that sort of keyword or really close matches of that keyword in there. I did mention yesterday you can use the dynamic keyword insertion. If you're using phrase match keywords, I probably recommend this, because what dynamic keyword insertion will do is it'll actually insert the search term keyword into the spot that your keyword is in your ad, which is really cool. So that's kind of using a bit of hybrid sort of AI there. So that's sort of the older way of doing it, and it still works. And I still suggest that if you're targeting keywords that have a really high competition and really high volume, yeah, if the volume's there, then you don't necessarily need to go away from just that single keyword. I'd say just optimize the shit out of that. But then you've got a lot of those sort of second tier keywords which have good volume, but you might want to sort of expand your market a little bit. And so what we do find is that by clumping really tightly relevant keywords together, so these keywords, and I never sort of go more than 4 or 5 as a sort of, I guess, a rule of thumb. But these keywords have to be really, really tight sort of thing. And what you're doing there is you're just allowing Google's AI to sort of expand itself on the search side of things and find you more customers, which is probably I need to mention again, all of this only works if you have conversion tracking set up. I mean, Google AdWords without conversion tracking it's dangerous and it's pointless. So make sure that you do have your conversion tracking set up on your website. We work predominantly in lead-based businesses, so we work obviously in the building construction industry, so we focus more on sort of leads as opposed to e-commerce. So the things that we're tracking are more so online conversions, which is somebody who's put an online form on, or submitted an online form, I should say, or we're tracking phone calls. So whether that's directly from the ads at the source or it's from the website, so phone clicks. And we set that all up through Google Tag Manager. There's a ton of videos that'll walk you through setting all that up. And it is quite simple, and you don't need to have a lot of technical skill, especially once you've got the actual Tag Manager code embedded on your website. So you can usually find someone with Fiverr to do that. And then even as a non-techie, you can set up all your pixels and all your conversion through Tag Manager. So I definitely recommend, if you're playing around with Google AdWords, check it out. Or if you're playing around with any marketing, really, check it out, because it is a really cool free tool. So okay, let's go through the last couple of points here as to how to get 10 out of 10 with your quality score is your avatar. Now, anybody who knows me knows I just bang on about avatars all the time, because it is the difference between good marketers and shit marketers is knowing who you're targeting. And so if you know who you're trying to get into your business, then you can really refine the parameters of who you're going to show your AdWords to, which means you can also then construct the messaging on your actual ads and on your landing page to really resonate with that user. So really understanding how old your avatar is. One thing that works really well is separating male and female. We find that this pretty well always gives us a bump in our quality score. And I don't know actually that I don't know if we hit 10 out of 10 too often when we're targeting both. So there you go. There's a bit of an insider tip. Separate your campaigns into male and female. It allows you to then have targeted targeted ads, focusing on that particular sex, and you can sort of even call them out in your campaign. You can have services for men, services for women, and the relevance is just huge, because if you're a male or female and you see that, then it's easy for you then to go, okay, I'm heading in the right direction, sort of thing. And then you can take them to landing pages where, let's say if I'm targeting male, there's male avatars and male images, and people who look like your target customer should be on your website, sort of thing. But we do find that works really, really well, is to split test the male and female, or split them out. So you can do that 2 ways. You can do that by setting up experiments, or you can do it simply by running 2 campaigns sort of in conjunction with each other. Just make sure you're not, but if you're running them in conjunction with each other, just make sure you're not bidding against each other, sort of thing. So you may have to sort of change up your keywords if that's the case, or change up the time of days that you're showing your keywords, or time of the week that you're showing your keywords, because you don't want to be competing against yourself. And so the last one then brings you to, I guess, this is the thing that tips the needle in your favor, and that is your click-through rate. I mentioned yesterday that Google cares about click-through rate almost more than anything else, firstly, because that's how they make money. Without a strong click-through rate, the rest of the sort of algorithm means nothing. So they want to make sure, if you're getting lots of clicks, that they're actually going through to a page that is relevant. So the user experience is incredibly powerful. So I did mention this yesterday, that click-through rate and user experience are the 2 big metrics that you've got to figure out. But first and foremost, getting the click-through. And this is a tough one, because you don't get infinite amount of text or copy to use. You don't get to use long-form sales copy, and you don't get to sort of you really can find by the parameters of that sort of that Google ad. And so it takes a little bit to play around with it. And the one thing I would suggest is make sure that when you craft your ads initially, so you've done your competitor research, you might run a few that are similar to those to test that out to see if that's working. Funnily enough, it doesn't always work. I've run campaigns where we've literally copied the ad, we've changed up very small, and it just hasn't worked. So it's not always an indicator that those ads are performing well. So when you're running your split testing of your ads, make sure that you make them dramatically different to each other. What happens too often is people will go in there and they've got Google AdWords have a great feature where you can just sort of copy and edit. But the problem with that is you find yourself making 10 ads where you're changing 1 or 2 words and the message is the same and you're not really giving up any sort of variety. So I'd sit down and think about the emotion that you're trying to tap into, the fears, the frustrations, the needs, the wants and the desires of your customers, and then really get a bit crazy and try and maybe go to different sort of places with your copy, because at the end of the day, don't get too granular before you know what they're looking for. I use the analogy that most people go and they try and sell somebody 3 different shades of a Lamborghini when they haven't even figured out whether the person wants a Lamborghini. So your initial campaign, you should be trying to show them a tank and a helicopter and a Lamborghini and a beat up old van to find out actually what they're interested in first. Once you know that they're either interested in sort of, and in this analogy, the tank or the Ferrari or the, whatever it might be, then go and get granular with that type of ad. So once you know the emotion, once you know the call to action, once you know, I guess, the thing that's triggering them into clicking on your ad, then that's when you go and split test that out and try and get granular. But if you start getting too granular too early, you're just digging yourself on a hole, because it's like you're in quicksand and you're never going to move the needle far enough to get any significant sort of split testing results that you can absolutely go, yep, this is the right direction we're moving into. And I'd suggest the same thing with keywords as well. And this is why going too granular with keywords, and I mentioned yesterday about the alpha beta campaign, which I'll touch on again here, trying to guess which long tail keywords or which sort of low competition keywords are going to get you there up front. For a small business owner who doesn't have the time to analyze the shit out of it, can be really tough. So again, use those beta campaigns. As I said, I traditionally run them on a dynamic campaign where I just let Google crawl my page, go out there and just tell me all the keywords that you think that page is relevant for. Because once I know that Google thinks that page is relevant for all these search terms, it's going to help my quality score. But also I'm looking for search terms that they've shown for that have good numbers or good metrics behind them. So I'm looking for search terms that might have a reasonable cost per click but are converting really well. And then it's just a process of taking that out, putting it in sort of your alpha campaign, which is your single keyword ad group, or again, your tight sort of keyword ad group, and then optimizing that for conversions from there. So there you go. That's how you can get a 10 out of 10 quality score in 2009. It's not as scary and not as hard as you think, but you do just have to understand the rules that Google's playing by, and you just need to continually optimize. And the other thing is just make sure you're cleaning your campaigns as well, because Google does look at the historical makeup of your account. So effectively any campaign, and this is why whenever a campaign is running really poorly, we would generally just cut it and get rid of it, because we just don't want the deadwood lying around, because we don't want Google to look at our account and go, oh, hang on, yeah, he's doing really well over here, but because these sort of 5 campaigns are really piss poor, we're going to sort of knock down his ad rank, which is the overall sort of quality score of your campaigns. And so it's just really important, run your winners long and then just cut your losers and sort of start again. I don't recommend optimizing on a granular level for sort of rubbish campaigns, especially when you're just getting into AdWords, because again, you just find yourself feeling like you're in quicksand, because you're jumping in every day or every week and you're making changes, but you're not getting outside of the sort of, I guess, your silo enough to really be testing other markets in other areas. So you want to go a bit crazy, you throw a bit of mud against the ball and see what sticks initially. So by doing that and then following the rules that I've sort of set out here to optimize for quality score, I can guarantee that your cost per click should come down dramatically. There's no way that you should be paying the market rate, and more importantly, your conversion should go up. And that's the goal of Google AdWords at the end of the day. Spend less, get more money on the back end. So hope this podcast was helpful. Feel free to like, share, and comment. If you've got anything that you'd like me to talk about in the future podcast, just throw it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to put something together. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow on the next podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day.